knowledge. STCC.
So I'll get into some statistics. Cybercrime is proven to be increasing. Everyone's suffering from it. Back in 2018, one of the biggest hit was financial sector at $18.3 billion. And what we're starting to see from there is a lot of healthcare industries are starting to be number one as far as being attacked. They'll hijack your and hold them for ransom. Another important statistic is the 69% of companies these days, they don't believe that their antivirus can help with the attacks that they're seeing. Basically what it's showing is that the more complex a system is, the more susceptible it became to cybercrime. So what we do have is we have reactive methods. Everyone has firewalls, antivirus software, but they're effective, but they don't stop every breach. So there's a need for some type of proactive approach to battling cybercrime. So we'll talk about why they're different, the differences between them. It fills that void because instead of just waiting for a presence to be there of a threat and noticing and doing something about it, like I said, it does take a proactive approach. So essentially you'll see it in my conceptual model, essentially what an ethical hacker will do is they'll use vulnerabilities that a regular hacker would use and try to bypass your system, try to bypass your firewall, try to bypass your antivirus. And whatever they find, they'll use that and build a better defense to prevent other vulnerabilities. Below that, there's a little diagram. So what it's showing you is that ethical hackers, regular hackers, people that want to do malicious or have malicious intentions, they all do the same thing. The difference between them is that what's called a white hat or an ethical hacker, they'll actually report it. They'll configure the systems and they'll build that defense. So that way it prevents someone that has malicious intent from gaining access that particular way. Some pros and cons about it. Price, there's a risk versus reward when it comes to this. So the top right, there's a chart that has a bunch of names on there. Essentially what that's telling you is that this is some information that I gained from a website. You'll see Starbucks up there. It's kind of hard to see right now, but Starbucks is on there. So, are they going to invest in ethical hacking? Maybe for financial records, maybe for some customer information, but they probably won't, spend a lot of money to secure their systems more than what it already is. But if you look right below that, there's PayPal. PayPal has a lot of financial records. They could probably benefit from having someone innocuously test their systems to gain access. But the one right below that, Department of Defense, Homeland Security, that's the U.S. government. They have a lot of different information that's, but the con to that is they're not going to hire someone and leave all that information for anyone to see. So it goes into discussion, gives you a couple of scenarios of things that happened just this year. So with all this, the conclusions that I came to was that, number one, ethical or cybercrime in general, it's going to increase. There's just no doubts about it. So I believe that, ethical hacking is a more proactive and better approach to combat cybercrime. So with that, I'll take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Adam. Any quick question for Adam before we move on to the next speaker?
Adam, this is Dave Boyers. Again, nice work, nice research, and a good presentation.
Thanks, Dave.
Yes, Unmute yourself, Alijalis, if you're there. So we'll move on to the next speaker, Eylen.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Go ahead, Eylen.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alan, and my topic for research is bird flight mechanics and biomimicry. So we humans have always been fascinated by how birds fly. Several scientists have studied birds, and many of them have even tried to imitate them. Birds flap their wings to produce thrust and lift, enabling them to fly and perform remarkable maneuvers. Understanding flight mechanics in birds is a very important factor because it helps to design our flights. So my hypothesis for my research is that different factors contribute to flight speeds and efficiencies in birds, and factors that contribute to flight efficiency in birds can be used to improve our flight designs. So in methods, the first picture shows the different factors that contributes to flight speeds and efficiency in birds, such as phylogenetic group, mass, aspect ratio, wing loading, and drag. And the picture below shows my analysis methods. I used statistical simulation to create graphs and understand what factors create the most efficiency. So for my results, you can see the picture below. It's a drag. I calculated drag in a pigeon at various velocities. So it has the U-shaped graph. I compared that graph to a power graph of a scientist called as C.J. Pennequick. So what he did was he calculated the mechanical power required for flight in a pigeon at various speeds. So you can see the U-shaped graph in both the pictures, which shows the similarity which shows that more power is required to overcome the drag at high speeds. And the next picture shows the aspect ratio. Aspect ratio basically means the ratio of the length of the wing to the chord length or the breadth. So the longer the wing, the longer and thinner the wing, the higher the aspect ratio. So the picture shows that longer wings create more wing lift coefficient at like low angles of attack. And the reason for this is shown by the picture below. So high aspect ratio wings has small vortex. Small vortex means less turbulence and less drag. Now, how can we use these results to create our flights? So it will be discussed in results 2 in biomimicry. So biomimicry is the art and science of imitating nature's ideas to solve our problems. So the first picture shows a peregrine falcon, and the aircraft that you see there is actually a stealth bomber used in war. It's part of our Air Force. So it shows how streamlined birds are and how we can use it to design our flights, how we can make them more how we can decrease air resistance. The next picture is a power glider. You can see an albatross there with high wing lift, high aspect ratios. And it shows that high aspect ratio wings can be used to create power gliders and high stability flights with more lift. One problem with high aspect ratio wings is that they are not very maneuverable. The next picture, like you can see the hummingbird over there. Hummingbirds have short stubby wings, which allows them to perform lots of amazing tricks and stunts, and they are very maneuverable in air. We can use such type of wings to create high speed fighter jets and surveillance drones and highly maneuverable drones and stuff like that. So for my conclusions, several factors contribute to flight speeds and efficiencies in birds. And at high speeds, reduction of body drag becomes a very important factor to reduce fuel consumption and save energy. High aspect ratio wings can be used to create powerful gliders. Low aspect ratio wings can be used to create jet aircrafts and really high speed maneuverable vehicles. And the future engineering designs I see, or the future research in this field is the concept called as wing morphing. Wing morphing is changing the shape of wings in mid-flight. So imagine if we could change the shape of the wing in mid-flight. Our aircrafts would be more multi-purposes. Right now, our aircrafts are like for a specific purpose, but if we could change the shape of wings, aircrafts would be more flexible and we can incorporate them in a lot of fields. Yeah, so that's all for my conclusions. I'll wind up now. Thank you.
Thank you, Eylen. Any questions for Eylen?
Tim,
Okay.
again, Alan, this is Dave. Great job. Good work and very confident. And I liked your research, as I said before, so I don't want to take too much time, but great job.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
I had
So
a
next,
question,
go ahead.
just a brief question. Ellen, you mentioned that the pointed wings reduce the vortex at the end of the wings. There are
Yes.
birds that have actually maximized the vortices at the end of their wings, like they have very broad wingtips. Can you think of
Yeah.
an analog in where that might help design be useful for airplane design?
So you mean like where we can incorporate low aspect ratio wings with broad tips?
Right.
So one problem with the low aspect ratio wings is the high turbulence. So maybe we can, as I said before, like it's highly maneuverable. So the problem would be such aircrafts, if you use it to travel at low speeds, the drag would be very high. So if you're using such type of wings, the aircraft should be traveling at incredible speeds.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so fighter jets would be ideal for such type of wings. But you don't want to use such type of wings in commercial aircrafts like Boeing, because the drag would be very immense, because such aircrafts travel at lower speeds compared to fighter jets. Yeah, so you
That's
can use it
sensible.
for fighter jets. Yeah. Good
Great,
question.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Our next speaker is Danielle. Danielle, take it over.
All right, so I did my, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure. So I did my presentation on the environmental and economic effects of oil spills. So every day, over 100 million tons of 100 million tons of oil is being transported across the world. And that's used for energy and fuel. And with this large amount of oil being transported, and the main way it's being transported is on tankers, so ships, there's bound to be mistakes. And unfortunately, we have thousands of oil spills occur each year because of this, whether they're little or huge. So I wanted to look at the effects of that. So I looked at previous oil spills, such as the Exxon Valdez oil spill back in 1989, and a bigger oil spill, the Deepwater Horizon, that happened in the Gulf. And I looked at soil samples and court cases of big companies that were responsible for these oil spills. And it was honestly pretty shocking to see the how big of an effect on wildlife this had. In the Exxon Valdez spill, the only wildlife that bounced back right away was basically only eagles, which was surprising. The toll on other wildlife, it just like ruined their ecosystem and their habitats. And in the Exxon Valdez spill, 10.8 million gallons of oil was spilled into the ocean, and it had a huge effect on these animals. Sea otters only were able to completely recover from this in 2014, and this oil spill happened in 1989. So it really shows the negative effects of the oil on the animals. This specific oil spill, it covered over 1,300 miles of coastline, and once the oil reaches the coastline, it soaks into the soil and can stay there for decades. And it's very, very, very hard to get rid of completely. So most oil spills are still being cleaned up. The Exxon Valdez spill was never fully cleaned up. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill, which happened in 2010, is still being cleaned up and still has major effects on the wildlife and the coastline. And that spill was 205.8 million gallons, so quite a bit larger than the Exxon Valdez spill. And because of that, a lot of wildlife was affected negatively too. And it's not just the wildlife that's affected from this. It's people's jobs, if they're fishermen or they just work with anything that has to do with maritime cultures. They lost their jobs because they couldn't fish because all the fish were dying from all the oil and everything like that. So many people lost their jobs and weren't able to get back into them because of all the damage that it did. So for what people have done to start cleaning up is when these happen, people put skimmers into the water and try to collect as much oil as they can. But again, that not always works, or not completely at least. They get clogged. So they also put in chemical dispersants, which break down the oil to make the oil droplets smaller and easier to collect. But even though those do a really good job at cleaning up, it still doesn't clean up as much as we would like. Well, in conclusion, thousands of oil spills in just the US happen in our waters each year. And it's really important for us to continue research of different ways to transport the oil, or if we could find more sustainable ways for fuel and energy, so none of this ever happens again. And so we can protect the wildlife and our economy, so this never happens again. And yeah.
Thank you, Danielle. Any questions for Danielle? While I'm moving
Danielle, I just wanted to say it's really cool to see you taking the next step with this stuff. Great project.
Oh, thank you.
Danielle, this is Dave. Again, I was impressed yesterday when I saw your draft of this, so I'm even more impressed with your presentation today. Good work.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Danielle. I'm just trying to open Erika's. Okay. Erika, floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Erika. My project involves bacterial contamination and public health, specifically contamination in water sources. And I felt that this was a very prominent topic as the majority of threats to our health are results of bacteria, and the number of those infected each year is rising exponentially. So there's a need to evaluate the role of disinfection towards finding a strategy for addressing bacterial contamination in water. Below the introduction are two images of the bacteria E. coli, which is currently the world's leading contributor to water contamination and waterborne disease. I sought to study the role of disinfection on waterborne pathogen populations and to develop strategies in both developed and developing countries. My study area included the United States and Canada for developed countries, as they have advanced economies, as shown in the image at the top of the third column, along with the entire continent of Africa, as each of its countries are shown to be developing and have the least developed economies. Developing countries are more affected by waterborne disease because they don't have financial access to proper disinfection methods, advanced health care, and even education about the spread of it. So I went about this project by first conducting research on the limitations within each type of country, such as what they can afford, what they even need, what's already out there, what's being used. So And once I got an idea of these boundaries set for each type of country, I furthered my research by finding the most beneficial water disinfection methods for both the developed and the developing countries. I then condensed my research into the top 3 methods for each country, as shown in the charts in my results section. I found that solar treatment by UV, boiling processes, and chlorine treatment are the most effective and cost-efficient methods of disinfection for a developing country. And for developed countries, I found that a UV disinfection system, reverse osmosis, and pulsar quantum system, and ozone water disinfection were the most effective methods. And as you can see, those are all very expensive. So they would typically be used by a company that filters water on its own for communities as opposed to being used in a household. I concluded that for developing countries, chlorine treatment is the most beneficial option, as it is the most effective and it has a relatively low cost at nearly $1 for a small bottle. For developed countries, I concluded that a reverse osmosis system paired with a pulsar quantum filter is of the most benefit because it has a higher effectiveness and it requires minimal maintenance at a relatively lower cost. And both methods are shown in the images to the right. I had initially hypothesized that for developed countries, a UV disinfection system would be most effective. But through my research, I ended up finding that its effectiveness has a lot of limitations, such as the amount of water, time of exposure, and the strength of the UV rays. So it takes a lot of work and consideration to try to get it to be as effective as possible, which is not always guaranteed. And lastly, I conducted some further research on the ways that a developing country can take steps to be more proactive with the contamination, such as washing hands, cleaning dishes, maintaining hygiene, and education on the spreading of bacteria, as those who are taught young will be more likely to consistently maintain these preventative measures throughout their lives. And as for future research, it would be beneficial to developing countries to have education services and programs implemented to teach the individuals in these communities about the effects of and preventative measures to take against bacteria. And in addition, there's the possibility of utilizing the methods from this current research to create an entirely new method that is of higher effectiveness than what we already have. And I would just like to thank all the professors for supporting and assisting me with this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Erika. Any questions for Erika?
This is Dave. Erika, again, likewise on all of your presentations, you've kicked it up to the next level and it looks terrific. I really like it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erika. Our next speaker is Eylen Diaz Soto. Eylen?
Hi.
Okay, take it over.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Eylen, and my research is about the roles of primary production in coastal ecosystems with a focus on phytoplankton and harmful algal blooms. So why is this important? Phytoplankton are the foundation of aquatic ecosystems. They are photosynthetic organisms, which means that the energy that they produce gets passed on from organism to organism, working its way up trophic levels to sustain life in the ocean. They also play a vital role in maintaining a healthy ecosystem by performing the biogeochemical processes that regulate CO2 levels in the ocean and the atmosphere. However, the issue comes when a high biomass of these producers comes in, and it can cause hypoxia, which is low levels of oxygen, negatively impacting the lives of other organisms in the system. So most research is focused on the species of phytoplankton and their dynamics, while there's less studies focusing on how these dynamics affect organisms on an ecosystem scale. My study focuses on the roles of phytoplankton in coastal ecosystems, the impacts of land use and climate change on phytoplankton dynamics, and its effects on the coastal ecosystem and human society. By analyzing these potential issues, we can develop effective solutions to decrease frequent algal blooms. So my study area was the Gulf of Maine, which is a gulf that runs about 36,000 miles on the Atlantic Ocean, bordering Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, and some of Canada. In the study, we identified the essential biological cycles that phytoplankton is responsible for, the trends on global warming, phytoplankton biomass, and how those two relate, as well as effective strategies to reduce the dense biomass of phytoplankton. As a result, we found that nutrient availability impacts the plankton biomass population. The biomass has effects on coastal ecosystems and society. Phytoplankton are responsible for photosynthesis, nitrogen fixation, and the biological carbon pump, which are important because without these processes, life in coastal ecosystems would not be sustained. We also found that climate and land use impacts can accelerate the eutrophication process, which eutrophication is nutrient excessiveness in lakes, ponds, the ocean, and comprehensive strategies can help mitigate these issues. Some of the strategies that we came up with are managing spills, monitoring natural processes like implementing wetlands, restoration and policies to prevent blooms from happening. In conclusion, due to how important primary production is in coastal ecosystem, ignoring issues like land use and climate change could have harmful effects on communities and human society. And that was all I had for today. Thank you so much for listening. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Eylen. Go ahead, questions?
Eylen, this is Dave. I really liked you got those letters centered for me, so it looks great on your graph there.
Thank you.
No, it's really important, and I just realized there's 50 people on your presentation today. So how exciting is that? And I know Adam was happy that I got that straightened out. You got that straightened out with the letters centered.
I was waiting for that, Dave.
Yeah, there you go. Terrific job, terrific, everybody.
Awesome. Our next speaker is Heather. Heather, take it over. I'm going to display your poster.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather, and my project is on health and environmental impacts of plastic pollution. So plastic is everywhere. It's in our everyday products like food, packaging, cosmetics, and clothing. And so most of the plastics today are single use and get thrown away. And these plastics are very durable. So once in the environment, it's very difficult for them to degrade, and they accumulate in the environment and has harmful effects to the environment. And so the current approaches and uses today are not sustainable. So the aim of the study is to develop strategies to reduce those sources and risks. So for my methods, I collected data from literature review, and in the conceptual model, so you can see the pathway. It starts at industrial production and domestic and commercial use, and then it mismanagement gets it into the soil and fresh water, and also it ends up in the plastic in the ocean. So in the dark blue, the 5 R's are used to deal with the situation at its source, and once it gets into the ocean, we can harvest and use remediation strategies. So for my first graph, you can see a significant increase from 1950 to 2015, from 2 million tons of plastic to 381 million tons plastic being produced. And in the next map, it shows different waste management, mismanagement in different countries, China being the most contributing to plastic waste. And then microplastics on the next column, they have 2 major sources. One is at a manufacturing level, like microbeads in your clothing and even car tires. and the other is when macroplastics gets fragmented into smaller pieces due to UV radiation and mechanical forces in the environment. And these microplastics, at the bottom, it says that over 243 species get entangled and ingest these plastics. And these animals include sea mammals and coral reef and also phytoplankton. And once they get ingested, they enter our food chain as well. And then my last graph, I listed a few strategies such as policy bans need to be enforced by the government. So to make businesses and consumers more accountable, such as even as little as what they're doing right now is no more plastic bags in the grocery store, and we're being charged plastic bags if we want them. So something little as that is a start. And then increasing recycling capacity and other ways to recycle without having to go through sorting. And biodegradation, there's new research being done to design bioplastics that degrade more rapidly in the natural environment. And incineration is really good for like medical applications where you don't want the biohazards to escape into public health. And public education is a really big one as well, because it raises attention in the community and get more of the public involved in the problem. And so I have a couple more on there as well, but the main idea is that there's like not one particular solution that can solve plastic pollution, and it requires a joint effort. It's a global issue, so global initiatives are very important to reduce the plastic or handle the plastic waste better.
Thank you, Heather. Any questions for Heather?
Heather, this is Dave. Nice work, nice job. Very interesting research, relevant, and it gives us some food for thought. So great job.
All right. Our next speaker is Javone. Javone, going to put your slide on and your floor is yours.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Javone. I did my research poster on, I can't even see the title, but biotechnological applications in agriculture. So in agriculture, we use basically genetic engineering in order to have multiple benefits, multiple positive outcomes. And there's also parallel a lot of risks associated with that are acknowledged in this poster. So right under my introduction, I have a graphic of just the nutritional benefits of some genetically modified plants. That we can edit now in order to have more of a nutritional value to foods that we already consume, which is already positive to start out with. I researched different methods, different applications in how we conduct agricultural biotechnology, and I came up with cloning, which is the cloning of animals, also the cloning of certain plants through protoplast fusion, which is basically fusing two species of plants together in order to have a more effective result. And transgenics, which is like the overall taking traits from one thing and kind of putting them into another. Again, all towards making a healthier, more rewarding crop. Also, agricultural biotechnology allows us to have higher crop yields, fewer pesticides, so we don't have to spray our existing crops as much, which helps reduce, later complications, if some residue is left over when the final product is released to the public. I have some graphics here explaining the process of cloning animals, and protoplasm fusion and transgenics, all of those that ultimately allow us to have, a better, allow us to have an economic benefit because they're going to ultimately cost us less than, trying to traditionally, hope for, in certain times where there's drought or flood, where we could just make plants that are going to be resistant to that. Instead, just wait that out. It mitigates any of that difficulty. I also looked into the history of agricultural biotechnology and saw that, I believe it started in the 1800s, late 1800s. So it's nothing new. It's been around for, years now, and it's benefited us, constantly. We already have multiple genetically modified plants and products that we use throughout our day. For an example, soybeans that we have pretty much in everything, especially candy, we consume all the time, and they're very much used or affected by agricultural biotechnology and increasing their yield and the productivity. We've also eradicated some diseases in other plants that used to harm that now we've taken care of. Like bananas used to have seeds in them, but we were able to produce and create bananas without them, or tomatoes we've genetically modified, even to the taste, so they taste better. So some of the cons are that when cloning some animals, they may just come out of the womb, I suppose, enlarged. It's a specific syndrome that I believe I listed somewhere on this poster, but that creates complications. Some of them are more susceptible to disease. Some of them die instantly. It's not a huge number, but it is a valid concern. As far as GMOs, we're not labeling them as much as we should. If you go into a store now, you're probably not going to see something that is genetically modified with a label that says that. There is a mandate for January 1st, 2022 to have all genetically modified products labeled, but as of right now, there aren't many, although some companies are doing it ahead of time just to have a more transparent outlook, I suppose. In conclusion, I just believe that agricultural biotechnology, the use of transgenics and genetically modifying organisms is much more of a benefit than it is a concern for the overall public. I think that it is much more common than people know, and if they can do anything in the field, it is to be more transparent on that fact. And for my future research, I said that we could potentially feed more people than we ever have been able to just through this application alone, and possibly eradicate, world hunger. And that's it.
Thank you, Javone. Any questions for Javone?
Javon, this is Dave again. I hate to keep saying and repeating my same thing, but you guys are doing a terrific job in the research component. And remember, Tim grades you. All whatever I say is just for your, just to make you feel confident in your abilities. But you really are portraying yourselves as very professional and very skilled in your presentations. And I know we have there's 50 people on the call, so don't other folks, don't be bashful, because the students here, any feedback they get and words of encouragement are going to help I see Javon wiping his face because he's sweating. See, they're nervous, and I think it's important that we try to really provide them with that encouragement. And you know, I don't say that they're doing good just to say they're doing good, but I think anyone would say this. This holds right up there with any you know, graduate student presentations and poster presentations that you'll see. So, Javon and all the team, great work, and other folks, please don't be bashful with the students. I saw some familiar names on the list, so that's why I'm saying that, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Javon. Just a couple of reminders. If those who are not presenting, if you can mute yourself, it will help distractions. Another one is presenters, if you can get closer to your router, it'll help with your signal, because sometimes the signal is getting weakened. So the closer you are to the router, it might help you maintain that good signal, okay? And also make sure you have your mic as close as possible to your mouth. All right, our next speaker is Jennifer. Take it over, Jennifer.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So my name is Jennifer Rivera. My research project is about the roles of urban trees in ecosystem services. The purpose of this project was to investigate the approximate size of the green area in the Springfield neighborhood, evaluate ecosystem services, and promote strategies to increase forest cover in the city. As you know, the Metro Center neighborhood, as you can see in Figure H, had been there has been a rapid growth of urbanization development. I'm sorry, my computer just shut down. And okay, since then, businesses, residential areas, and population continue to grow, and green areas have been gradually lost. For the year of 2014, the Metro Center had only a canopy cover of only 6.7% in comparison with Forest Park, which is in Figure F, and has that Forest Park had a 41.3 cover. So why is this important? Because urban trees provide us with many benefits. One of them is they help reduce the greenhouse effect. They help filter the air, offering a better air quality. Trees are part of two important cycles, which are the transpiration cycle and carbon cycle. They help us save energy by decreasing the heat, and even homeowners could save up to 58% of heat conditioning costs. So unfortunately, we have been losing these benefits. Different studies have shown the loss of trees nationally and internationally greatly contributed to global climate change. In addition to climate change, researchers have reported that the air quality will keep changing negatively due to the greenhouse effect. If forest loss continues in Springfield, we will lose the benefits that the trees provide, especially in urban areas where there's a population, a great number of population. So how can we help increase the forest lands in Springfield? Relevant government agency and the community must come together to fulfill this purpose. The community must be informed and motivated to become part of programs like ReGreen, who receive volunteers to plant trees free of cost. The government could promote fewer damages alternatives for soils among farmers regarding infrastructure. Restoring and upgrading unused buildings instead of building new ones seems to be a better alternative. We must appreciate and take care of the trees. Preserving the forest in urban areas are vital for this and future generations. Thank you all. Thank you all. That's it. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for Jennifer?
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, what did you think of the storm in Springfield, and how do you think that has impact? Do you think that'll have a significant impact on some of the areas if we were to go look at them, next year. You think we'll see a decrease in canopy cover in some of the neighborhoods that lost
Probably,
trees?
yes. First of all, I was really sad to see all those trees in the streets.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. But like I said, programs like Re Green will definitely help, and I'll sign up to be part of the team if possible. And I'll be happy to help that. And I'll happy when I buy my first house, I will definitely have like 3 trees in there.
All right, and we can get you some at Re Green. We can get them to get you some free trees. So.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your
Thank
work.
you very much.
And as a resident of the city, I'm always excited to see folks telling me a little bit about what's going on in the city. And this certainly is something we're going to hopefully share and have you help to share that message.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Joseph. Joseph,
How you doing? How you doing, everybody? My name is Joseph. My poster topic is on waste management in Massachusetts. So the United States is the leading contributor to solid waste, totaling about 642,700 metric tons per day. China is the second contributor, totaling about 520,548 metric tons of waste daily. With so much waste generated around the world, this has a negative impact on the quality of the ecosystem and decreases the economic integrity. A geographic information system, which most call it GIS, is a computer system for capturing, storing, checking, and displaying data related to positions on Earth's surfaces. By linking seamlessly unrelated data, GIS software can help individuals and organizations better understand spatial patterns and relationships. By combining spatial analysis and GIS data from Massachusetts, I was able to assess the underlying issues in waste management in Massachusetts in the Pioneer Valley. Simple, we have to recycle and utilize compost every time, although many fail to do so. Alarmingly, in 2008, Boston, Massachusetts reported that only 13% of its population is recycling, following Amherst, Massachusetts, only reporting 29% of its population utilizes the benefits of recycling. Not recycling is a growing problem. So in 2008, Massachusetts established a goal to reduce total disposal by 2 million tons annually, from 6,550,000 tons to 4,550,000 tons by 2020. If this is achieved, this would create a 30% reduction within the Commonwealth. In general, solid waste is variable by town and is increasing over time. By incorporating recycling and utilizing compost, we can start to have less solid waste over time. This recycling rates are high in specific cities and towns, and with data, we can plan how to reverse solid waste. Recycling behavior information can promote the voluntary reduction of waste by informing the public to recycle and to continue to recycle. With so much harm waste contributed around the world, solid waste negatively impacts the quality of the ecosystem, resulting in decrease in the economic integrity around us. With solid waste increasing over time, we have no choice but to become an active contributor and do something about the underlying issues of solid waste. So I just want to thank, my professors, my mentors, Springfield Technical Community College and UMass Amherst for this great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Any questions for Joseph?
Joe, this is Dave. Again, as I commented yesterday, you're all looking at relevant, timely topics, which is so good. So this is terrific. And I was happy to see the analysis as well as comparisons and the solid research that you put into this. And really, all of you have taken time to research the topic. And I know you have learned quite a bit along the way. So congratulations. And Joe, nice presentation and a terrific poster.
Thank you so much. And thanks again to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. So our next speaker is Julio. So Julio, take it over.
Good morning. So my poster is about energy efficiency in public transportation. I'm gonna be talking about the MTA's subways in New York, since it's one of the largest train systems we have in the United States, and also the busiest, with an annual ridership of 1.7 billion a year. Okay, so all this contributes to the MTA subway to muster up a power of 1.8 billion kilowatts an hour. That's enough to light up the city of Buffalo for a whole year. But nevertheless, even the MTA system provides 65% of all New York City's commutes, and it's still just using just 5% of the city's total energy consumptions, all while producing low greenhouse gas emission. They're moving forward with an aggressive schedule and plan to have 80% of their electrical needs from clean and renewable energy. One of their projects involves having wind turbines constructed on the shores of Queens, one of the boroughs, generating 1.5 megawatts of clean energy, avoiding congested power lines. That's equivalent to 1.5 million kilowatts compared to the 1.8 billion kilowatts that it annually produces. One of their projects involves having also to engineer hump tracks. It's designed to reduce and capture energy the train expends in braking and accelerating. Otherwise, it would be lost. The same energy is then transferred to departing trains on the adjacent side of the track. And they also have changed their underground lights to fluorescent lights. That as well is 980,000 kilowatts an hour a year, and as well as it reduced their carbon emission. And that's all.
Can you mute? I think there is some disturbance in audio. Hold on 1 minute, okay? Just asking them to mute.
And you might be able to mute all your lines, everyone's line except.
Yeah, it's coming back. I mute and then it comes back. So hold on. So go ahead, Julio.
So yeah, so they have these hump tracks that are designed to reduce and capture energy that the train expends in braking and accelerating. Otherwise, it would be lost. That same energy is then transferred to departing trains on the adjacent side of the tracks. And they're just getting better at, just using natural energy. They're actually kind of something that I did learn is all the rainwater that comes down, they actually use that to cool off their trains, their engine, and sewer water as well. And that's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Julio. Any questions for Julio?
Julio, you did well, even though you had some distractions there. So it's hard to keep your focus, and you did well with that. And again, a very good study. You followed the objectives, and you gave us a good conclusion. So
yeah, I mean, I tried. I was gonna compare two cities, but it was kind of impossible since New York is one of the busiest trains in United States, and in the bottom of the chart you can see there's no train comparing it. So I just did a study on itself.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And you explored the data, you looked at the information, and you're able to come up with some findings. So that was really well done. And I know you've all learned a lot actually, about data analysis and exploratory data analysis and how to summarize the information succinctly. So that was really well done.
Thank you, Julio. Our next speaker is Karina.
Good morning. In my project, I talk about the prospects and challenges in organ transplant for human health. I find it's important to analyze data about the complications and success rate of organ transplants in order to understand how to improve the procedure. In the objective, I focus on the factors influencing organ availability and supply, also evaluating the reasons for the success of the transplant. The hypothesis, I focus on the number of willing donors has significant influence on organ supply, and the success of the transplant is influenced by careful planning on the procedure. In the second column, as you can see, where it says where people are most willing to donate organs, Turkey and Spain are followed closely with 72%. Each, the share of people willing to donate is much lower in other countries. However, it's only amounted to 33% in Japan and 30% in Russia. In the methods, specific strategies to improve the transplant process by recommendation from healthcare industries and literature. Results and discussion. Factors contributing to a successful organ transplant. Stage 1, donor compatibility, locating donor close by. Stage 2, harvest, clean environment, quick transportation, donor health. Stage 3, surgery planning and skilled surgeons. Stage 4, post-surgery, no signs of rejection, keeping up with the doctor's order. Sorry. And then the graph below, as of 2019, less than 120,000 on the waiting list, and 39,000 transplant has been done, and 19,000 donors were available. The graph shows each year the number of people on the waiting list continues to be much larger, and the number of donors in transplant, which grows slowly. And then some strategies to increase limited donor resources is to improve in donor resuscitation, better methods of lung preservation, extension of the lung donor selection criteria, development on living-related lung donor program, utilization of non-heart beating donors. And then in the conclusion, understanding how to improve solid organ transplant can save a life that has been affected by terminal organ failure and improve quality of life. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Karina. Any questions for Karina?
Karina, this is Jamie. I wanted to jump in and congratulate you on taking the next step with this, and so impressed by the progress you've made.
Thank you.
Yeah, your results, and it's just with all of the graphs there that tell the story, and your conclusion very strong. So nice work on that, Karina.
Right. So our next speaker is Katrina Wilkinson. Katrina, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Hi, I'm Katrina. I did my research project on invasive species. My specific objectives going into this was to study their impacts, factors that contribute to their successful invasion of an ecosystem, and also their management. My study area for this project was Australia. I chose Australia because it has a very high biodiversity due to its climate. But in the past several decades, that biodiversity has been declining. So invasive species, what exactly is the problem here? So these species are usually introduced by humans and usually intentionally. Right below the introduction on the left there, you can see some invasive species that are really prevalent in Australia right now. There are cats. These are feral cats. They're the same species as like domestic house cats, but what makes them feral is they live completely independently from humans. So they're living and hunting in the wild. There's also the European rabbit and also cane toads. Main problems caused by invasive species are biodiversity loss. For example, it's estimated that about 54% of extinctions where the cause can be determined are partly due to invasive species, while 20% of them are solely due to invasive species. They also cause economic loss. For example, between 2011 and 2012, about $3.77 billion were spent in Australia on invasive species management. And even more billions on top of that were lost in economic losses, mostly due to agriculture damage. Factors that lead to success. If you look at my conceptual model, you can kind of see there are two main columns. There are environmental factors as well as species characteristics. So environmental factors include like temperature, climate, predators or competitors in the ecosystem, and available food and water. And then species characteristics could be reproduction. For example, rabbits reproduce extremely quickly, and their diet. I have a pie chart at the bottom of column 3, which illustrates a feral cat's diet, and that includes amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and birds. So you can see how this could pose a huge risk to vulnerable species in those categories. As far as management goes, it's been shown that ecological recovery is possible about 70% of the time, either partial recovery or complete recovery upon eradication of invasive species. So management techniques that are commonly used are physical barriers such as fences. All the way in the right-hand corner, you can see a fence, and that is called the rabbit-proof fence. That was built in Australia about 1801 to protect agriculture, and it actually spanned entirely across the continent, from the north coast to the south coast. It proved to not be that effective, however, as rabbits were found on the west side of that fence only a year after construction. This could be due to its size. It would be incredibly difficult to maintain and monitor its effectiveness because, again, it spanned the entire continent. Another technique for management is harvest. So this is lethal measures taken to decrease population. Directly beneath that picture of a fence, there's a picture of a grooming trap. That is really interesting. It actually uses cameras to identify invasive species such as foxes and cats, and it sprays them with a toxin that is then ingested when they groom themselves. The third method of management that I looked at is biocontrol, and this includes things like introducing specific viruses or other organisms to control an invasive population. So cane toads that I talked about before are actually an example of attempted biocontrol because they were introduced to control another species, cane beetles, that were damaging agriculture. but they actually got totally out of control because they don't have any natural predators or diseases to control them. So the Australian government takes the invasive species really seriously. They passed the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, and they're especially serious about their management of feral cats and European rabbits, as these cause huge biodiversity and economical damage. So looking at these past techniques, we see that adaptive and comprehensive solutions are needed in future management, and recognizing that management is not a one-size-fits-all, and it really needs to be decided on an individual basis. So different techniques for management could be using physical barriers such as fences, but keeping it confined to a smaller area, easier to maintain and to manage. Also the use of islands, so eradicating an invasive species on an island and then using that island to conserve vulnerable species. And also just continuing biocontrol research and continuing monitoring effectiveness. So just to wrap it up, my main conclusions were that we can see the negative effects of invasive species and that we know that there are benefits of their removal, but that continued research, monitoring, and education is necessary in order to have ecological recovery. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Katrina.
We need to show him some love.
So any questions for Katrina?
So he doesn't turn evil and kill us all.
Katrina, this was Dave. Really nice study. And you come up with some of the techniques for control and some of the failures of those, which is interesting to hear. And the overall scope of your project was very well thought out and well presented. So nice work.
Thank you.
Is that your bird I hear in the background?
Yes, it's an invasive species.
Came from Australia.
Right. Yes, it's from. Our next speaker is Lee. Lee?
Hello.
You want to take it over?
Okay. Oh, hello everyone. So my name is Lee, and my research topic is about automobile design using carbon fiber as an efficient material. As of today, the material of our transportation is made out of steel, aluminum, rubber, and plastic, just to name a few, but it's mostly metals. Steel is probably the most used material in manufacturing our vehicles, which is pretty heavy. I found that reducing the weight of the car can reduce the carbon emission and fuel consumption by about 7 to 10%. That is why my research focused on how carbon fiber can be an alternative material for designing our transportation. So my research has 3 objectives: to study the current state of material and transportation, to evaluate the feasibility of carbon fiber in designing our transportation, and to develop a simple prototype of a typical transportation. So in my methods to study the current state of material in transportation, I started literature reviews using Google Scholar that focus on carbon fiber in vehicles, advantages of carbon fiber, and the applications of it. And to evaluate the feasibility of carbon fiber in designing our transportation, I use a software called CES database, which helps me graph mechanical properties of the material, which helps me support that carbon fiber has a ton of advantages in designing our vehicles. Lastly, I created a simple 3D model using SolidWorks, a CAD software that helps me determine its mass, volume, and density. So in the results, I found that the common material that are currently being used to create millions of transportation, whether it be in the automotive, aviation, or maritime industry, are steel, rubber, plastic, and aluminum, which you can see in figure 6. I also put an example of what carbon looks like to have you guys have an idea of it. Furthermore, as you can see, I made 4 graphs, shows the stiffness, strength to weight ratio, density, and tensile strength of carbon fiber and other metals, which I compared to them, which is used to design the process of creating cars. As you can see in the first graph, the Young's modulus, which measure the stiffness of the material which resists to deformation, I found that carbon fiber can par with steel and iron. In the second graph, which shows the strength to weight ratio of the material, which carbon fiber tops all of them. It also shows that carbon fiber is not very dense, but has a high yield strength. The third graph shows that carbon fiber is not very dense. This is the reason why carbon fiber is very lightweight compared to other metals. And the last one is the tensile strength. As you can see in the graph, carbon fiber along with steel and aluminum can handle a lot of stress. In my last result, I created a simple 3D model of transportation, which helps me prove my hypothesis that carbon fiber increase the efficiency of the car. One using carbon fiber, the red one, and one using steel as the material, which is the black one. Since reducing the car's weight can reduce carbon emission and fuel consumption, I found that carbon fiber is 4 times less heavy compared to using steel, and carbon fiber is less dense compared to steel. You may be wondering that I'm implying that we use carbon fiber all over the car design, but I'm just presenting the idea of how carbon fiber, if applied to some parts of the car, such as wheel, hoods, door frame, or replacing steel chassis with a monocoque chassis tube, which is more lightweight and made out of carbon fiber, which can reduce the car, which lessen the carbon emissions and fuel consumption. So in conclusion, by using carbon fiber as an alternative material in designing our transportation, we can replace steel and iron, which we have trouble in supplying the demand of it. It's also solved the steel manufacturers that produce a ton of carbon emissions. By using carbon fiber in the design process, the material has a longer lifespan, which can reduce the production of steel, which reduces the carbon emissions. So for the future researcher there, carbon fiber gives a ton of advantages, but like any other research, it also has disadvantages. Carbon fiber requires a lot of energy to be made, and it's a slow process because the material is very delicate. And also, it's very expensive to manufacture on a large scale. There's a need to develop a better and cheaper process of carbon fiber. Lowering the cost of carbon fiber makes it a viable solution for vehicles and a wide variety of clean and energy applications. And that is all.
Excellent. Thank you, Lee. Any questions for Lee?
Lee, do you think they'll be developing those strategies and technologies and ability to create a carbon fiber less expensively? Because if cost is out, that's a prohibitive component. I was wondering, is the cost trending to come down, or has it been stable over the last several years, or do you know how long it would take to make this more affordable?
Well, as of today, I think many researchers are planning to solve the process of making carbon fiber less energy consumption, because for now, carbon fiber is still a mystery to some researchers because it's really hard to make it. But I think there's a lot of progress in today's generation that I think after 10 years, carbon fiber can be constructed in a large scale for cars.
Okay, well, that's good to know, and I'm sure we'll have to look and see if you're right, but I'm sure you probably are, so that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Our next speaker is Lizbeth. Lizbeth, you want to take it over?
Yes. Okay, I'm Lizbeth, and my topic is about climate change and infrastructure of Massachusetts. What is climate change? Climate change is not about global warming. Climate change is increasing the planet's temperature. And what causes climate change? It is caused by carbon dioxide that is produced by the human and natural resource. And well, my hypothesis is how climate change is significant for humans and how it has been impacting infrastructure. Um, it has been impacting Massachusetts, causing natural disasters, affecting our infrastructure, roads, telecommunication, buildings. If the temperature is still increasing, it will impact us in multiple ways. Like we are going to have more wildfires, drought, sea level rise, and flooding, properties damages, and business. Well, and this I have a table of key infrastructure. Basically, it's saying how if there's a storm, we are going to suffer from energy. Like not too long ago, there was a lot of wine, and I think there's a lot of people who lose energy at their houses. And for the result and discussion, basically those pictures are just showing how if the temperature change, if it's too warm or too cold, we are going to suffer anyways from either side. So, and the transportation research highlights we are having how roads are destroyed by storms, and the roads by seawater, by sea level, well, yeah, in the air. And the other images from Boston, it's Boston inundation, that this image is showing how Boston landmark will be affected by the climate change, causing more money because the damage will deeply destroy the infrastructure, and it will be more frequent, and it will take a little bit longer to repair, and the cost is gonna be too high. And in conclusion, if the human don't stop, if the human is not aware of the climate change is going to be rising, and it's gonna be impacting us. I'm done.
Oh, thank you, Lizbeth. Questions for Lizbeth?
Elizabeth, I had to bring over a couple of coworkers here to have them look at those maps that you have of Boston. It's very extreme and very scary. But great job, and another timely topic that we all have to look at as we move forward. So great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisbeth. Our next speaker is Madhavi.
Hi, my name is Madhavi, and today I'll be my poster is based on assessment and modeling of COVID-19. So as everyone knows, COVID-19 is known to be one of the most deadliest viruses around the world. And throughout the world, many people have negatively impacted by this virus. So for the objectives, I'll be talking about how this is to understand how this virus impacting around the world and its historical background. The coronavirus is both something old and something different. As usual, the pandemic is both well-being and financial shock, but it hit China first and the hardest. It influenced health and economic widely. This poster will be analyzing the true origin and the true back occurrence of this virus. It focuses on the demand and equipment of medical supplies to free the victim of COVID-19. Various cases and death took place up to April 10, 2020. The most affected countries are known to be US, Spain, Italy, France, and Germany. And also, according to the research, this virus can grow rapidly and may likely to cause more death than recover. Here, I have a picture of the graph where it shows how this virus is increasing throughout the month and over the world. And under here, I have the picture of the how this virus is spreading from country to country because of people not taking it seriously. And by looking, some interesting fact I found about this topic is that in February 2020, the incident of this virus begin to rapidly escalate in Italy. By March 25, Italy has the second most highest number of COVID and death. And here's on the graph, it shows like how the virus from compared to last month to now, the virus cases have increased because people are not taking it seriously and they are being more exposed to public area. And for solutions, I have to this virus, as of now, we don't have any cure for this virus, but we can control this virus if we follow the guidelines that is provided by medias and some websites, and being exposed to public area, and also wearing masks and precautions can be really helpful. And most importantly, washing hands frequently can be very useful to avoid getting this virus. And So I have a picture of the graphic. Throughout the world, business field is highly impacted by this virus. Because of this virus, some business has to close down. So yeah, and I have the pictures of how over the world the business field is impacted. And in conclusion, I said that this virus is life-threatening for elderly people and people with underlying diseases. So this virus can be controlled if people take it seriously and focus more on So if people strongly follow the guidelines and provided by the various websites. And that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Madhavi. Any questions for Madhavi?
Do you know anyone that has gotten the virus?
Not well.
No friends or family.
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
But I've seen many people dying over the through the websites and stuff. So
yeah, sad.
Yeah, it is really sad. How innocent people are dying.
So before we go to our next speaker, can I ask if Alijalis Dias is here? You can unmute yourself and let me know so that we can schedule your talk. Alijalis? Okay. We'll move on to our next speaker. Muna, are you here?
Yes.
Take it over.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Baniya. So for this research project, I chose the topic vaccines and its impact on public health. So my two objectives for this research paper is to study the role of vaccines in public health historically and to study the impacts of misinformation and anti-vaccine perception on the health of society. My hypothesis is vaccines have a significant benefit to public health and anti-vaccine sentiments are a great threat to society's health. As we all know that vaccines are one of the greatest achievements in the history of modern science and medicine. About 86% of the world population is immunized today. Every year, approximately 2 to 3 million deaths are prevented globally through immunization against diseases such as diphtheria, tetanus, whooping cough, and measles. However, despite of all these successes, about 6.6 million children still die every year, and half of these deaths are caused by infections, including pneumonia and diarrhea, which could easily be prevented by vaccines. This is due to the lack of understanding about how vaccine about vaccine and how it works. Some people have misconception about it. They tend to believe that vaccine could potentially cause side effects, such as like autism or sudden infant death syndrome. So the next is the conceptual model. The model shows how a human perception and their lack of understanding about vaccines, treatment, prevention could ultimately or lead to disease in the incidence. So the next is the results and the discussion. So the first graph, it shows the timeline of different diseases that occurred over time. And how vaccines have helped reduce and eliminated these diseases like deadly viruses like smallpox, chickenpox, and polio. So moving on to the next graph, it shares that disagree that vaccines are important for children. So we see a very high support for vaccination across almost every country. In most countries, like in Eastern and Western Europe, over 80% of the respondents think that children vaccines are important. And in some countries like South America and South Asia, it's more than 90%. The next graph shows people that disagree with vaccines being safe. Trust in vaccine is not that very high everywhere, especially in France, because every 1 in 3 people disagreed that vaccines are safe. Many in neighboring countries like Switzerland or Belgium were also very skeptical. More than 20% disagreed. Other countries with very mistrust about vaccine being safe are Gabon with 26%, Tango with 25%, Austria with 21%, and Iceland with 21%. In conclusion, while I was researching, I found out that vaccines have a huge impact on public health as it successfully eliminated 2 major infections, smallpox and rabies. Polio has been almost eradicated and measles is successfully under control. Vaccines are 90 to 99% effective when it comes to preventing a disease. Every 9 in 10 people, or 92% of the population, thinks that vaccines are important for children. However, hardly 7% of the respondents across the world have said that they strongly disagree with the statement that vaccines are safe, although it has been proven that it does not cause autism, sudden infant death syndrome, or leukemia. That's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mona. Any questions for Mona?
I just zoomed in on here to look at, I looked at China and I see that they have nearly 100% vaccination. And you're looking at that study there for measles, which one is it? But it was just interesting because Australia and Switzerland and those compared to China, it's a whole different culture, and very interesting how the two vary, but a lot of information there and good work. It was really nice, well presented.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mona.
Thank you, Professor.
So our next speaker is Sebastian.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I did my project about the analysis and factors and impacts of COVID-19 pandemic in Massachusetts. My objectives are to study the dynamics of COVID-19 pandemic, to evaluate the disease spread in Massachusetts, and to develop mitigation strategies to reduce the impacts of the disease in Massachusetts. I found that there are many types of human coronaviruses, including some that commonly cause respiratory illnesses. COVID-19 is a new disease caused by a new coronavirus that has not previously been seen in humans. I used in my research a system dynamic and several images to illustrate how COVID-19 can be spread and how it is impacting the state of Massachusetts, and strategies taken to reduce the spread of COVID-19. I also found that there is a wide range of coronaviruses. However, they do not get transmitted from animal to a person. COVID-19 disease has its origin in bats. Nevertheless, the exact source of COVID-19 has not been found yet. Some strategies have been implemented to reduce the amount of infections by COVID-19 in Massachusetts, such as implementing social distance, but COVID-19 will not be eliminated until scientists and doctors find a vaccine that can fight the symptoms and produces and spread the COVID-19 disease. People will have to learn to keep social distance, wear masks, and wash hands in order to ease the spread of COVID-19 disease. And the COVID-19 pandemic has affected 203 countries between December 2019 and July 2020 around the globe. COVID-19 has set an unprecedented challenge to healthcare systems, societies, and governments since the beginning of its outbreak in China. The virus spread from person to person through respiratory secretions like droplets from cough and sneeze of an infected person to another person. Someone infected with COVID-19 can spread the illness to others as much as 48 hours before they have symptoms. The elderly and people with respiratory disease are the most vulnerable to get it and die from COVID-19. That's what I have.
Thank you, Sebastian. Any questions for Sebastian?
Sebastian, you presented a lot of data, a lot of graphs, a lot of various flow models. So I really like that. I know it's hard to put that into 5 minutes. And Tim, are you going to be able to share the posters so we can take a closer look at them?
Yes, I believe many of the posters are going to be posted by Stick Media as PDF, so it should be available.
Okay, that'd be great because I'd like to take a closer look at some of them.
Okay, our next speaker is Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie, and my project was on factors influencing mental health in America. So a little background on mental health is what we know today as the mental health movement really started in 1908 with a Yale student named Clifford Beers. He suffered a psychotic break, which we know now was a manic bipolar episode. He was put in an insane asylum and held consecutively for 21 days and nights in a straitjacket. After he got back on his feet in 1909, he created the mental health hygiene movement, really trying to help the way people with mental health are treated by others and how they're treated like to get better from their mental health. So today, the World Health Organization still holds a lot of his values. They have updated them with the times, but they're pretty much the same to help people get better treatment and help them be treated better in society. Through my research, I found that there are a lot of factors that do influence mental health, such as poverty levels, race, ethnicity. There are the way people get their mental health disorders is it can be very random, or these factors do play a big part, like genetics. For a lot of diseases like schizophrenia or something, that is based on their genetics, but a lot of times depression can be randomized and that can happen to anyone. Also, you can see that in my images, in 2009, there was a big amount of not a need met by health professionals to help all these people that are suffering from mental health disorders. And that's really, really sad because so many people are suffering when they don't need to. The biggest thing that I learned was that all these mental health disorders can be treated and most of them can be cured. People can live full, healthy lives, but it's just there's not enough help out there for them. And also there is a huge stigma attached to mental health. A lot of people are often afraid to get help or speak up when they're feeling some way because they're afraid of how they'll be perceived and they'll be called crazy or anything derogatory like that. So a lot of people suffer in silence. and that's also really sad because again, they could be cured or they could be living with it. Yeah.
Are you done, Stephanie?
What?
Are you done?
No, I was
Oh.
I was just hearing a bunch of
Oh,
stuff,
background.
so-
Yeah, I think if everyone who is not speaking, if you can mute your mic.
No, like I'm hearing everything that happened before.
See.
Like other people's presentations. I don't know.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Do you hear that?
Yeah, it's some sort of a disturbance, so don't worry about it. Just finish
Oh,
up.
okay. Well, basically, the last part that I was gonna say was there's like a cycle. Like mental health can cause, if untreated, it can cause a lot of chronic health disorders like diabetes, high blood pressure, stuff like that. But on the other side, if you suffer from one of these chronic medical conditions, you can also get a mental health disorder like depression. So it's just a big cycle. And then I found a few strategies that could help, like early intervention can really help with people not getting a mental health disorder later on, or the cost, like if people went to therapy, they would be able to, it would only cost them like $1,000 a year, but even for a lot of people that cost is still way too high. And I have another image that shows people being, oh my gosh, this is so distracting. There's another image I have of people saying how much they spend a year on mental health care, and there's like 32% say they don't get any care because the cost is too high. And that's just ridiculous to me. Nobody should have to not get treatment just because it's too expensive. So it's just a big cycle. And that's it, because I can't even hear anything.
Yeah, there was some disturbances from people who haven't muted their phones. So I did that. So any questions for Stephanie?
Stephanie, this is Dave, and I've just zoomed into the map of the United States where your unmet need for mental health professionals is, and I noticed Massachusetts is one of the lowest for unmet needs. So I know in Massachusetts that everyone has to have health insurance, and I think that might be part of it. Do you think that's part of it, that it makes it affordable? Because as
Yeah,
you look at
I do. I think I have other maps in my research paper that you can really see there's a clear overlap of more diverse areas of the United States that are living in poverty that also have the highest levels of mental health cases.
Yeah.
And even with where the lack of mental health care professionals are, that's also in those same areas. So I think it's just a big overlap between people not being able to afford their care, people of color, and there's just not enough doctors to help them anyways.
Yeah, a friend of mine is a psychiatrist, and he told me there's a great shortage of psychiatrists. There's plenty of psychologists, but psychiatrists are I think they do prescribing of medicines and things. And he said there's a huge shortage of them, even in Massachusetts, and they're overburdened with the amount of work that I know that he does. So. Sure, and I don't think this COVID-19 is going to help. I think you'll see a spike in a lot of the numbers of some of the list of the issues that you had on there.
Yeah, I agree.
Nice work, though. Really nice work.
Thank
Good
you.
job, despite whatever you were hearing in the background.
You guys didn't hear it?
Yeah, we did. I'm muting them. It's coming back unmuted. So
No, I heard like the
Yeah.
the beginning of the presentation. So I was hearing other people talking, so it was really hard for me to like hear myself talk because I was hearing them talk. So I don't know.
So thank you, Stephanie. We'll move on to our next speaker, Travis. Travis, you're here?
Yes.
The floor is yours, Travis. Go ahead.
Okay. So, hello, my name is Travis Smith, and I'm here to talk about how virtual reality in gaming just overflows the marketing prices and profits. In video games, virtual reality is one of the most popular attractions to use in gaming. Although VR headsets are known as one of the highest selling accessories next to video games and controllers, it was used as a booth in the past when a cinematographer known as Morton Heelig just created it in the early 1950s. But now, in the future, VR headsets are more portable and allow people to move freely around their rooms to extend their reaches into the virtual world they see. Most creators just have to develop these games through their own PC computers, or even hire people like Sony or Samsung can actually get more quality into those games. But the more content they add into it, or even the more stuff they put through, like HD, or even having some extra features to it. I created a game myself as shown below, even though it's not as good as all the other stuff. It shows that it can be an adventure game where you can go on quests, adventure through, fight bosses, and find special items while playing through, even though it's mostly storyline based. But you can have an open world to it, for it is that kind of a gameplay as well. And the next to it is a cutscene, knowing you can have interactions to it, and it also provides a perspective as what is being said to the game itself. Lastly, people do tend to find that Samsung is the highest quality of virtual headsets being sold from 2016 to the present. And their competitors, most of them, like Google Cardboard or even Oculus Rift, do have a little bit of a shakedown, but they're still going through it. And that's something that they would need to focus on more. In conclusion, people tend to have common interest in virtual reality instead of just games, which can be revolutionized as the most unique possibility for future technology as we go on through. Thank you.
Excellent, Travis. Any questions for Travis?
I just think he did a great job on his poster and, really talking about it. Thank you so much, Travis.
Travis, you had a ton of information up there. I was trying to read as you were talking, so nice work. And I like how you're able to pull together your findings there. So nice work and good job, and exciting to hear.
Thank you, Travis. So our next speaker is Tyra. I know that they had a power outage for the past couple of days. Couldn't be. So is Tyra here? So I will be just quickly going through Tyra's presentation. She did a lot of work in this. So primarily, what you can see natural spaces, especially some of you presented about urban forests, they have huge impacts on public health. Nowadays, we see that hospitals, healthcare are trying to actually incorporate both indoors and outdoors some of the natural systems. And so Tyra did some preliminary analysis on the impact of natural space on public health in Massachusetts. And a couple of analyses, she focused on county level data, trying to see what are the impacts on asthma and COPD versus the open space in that particular county. And then the second one, so these are some of the results she got using some one-to-one regression analysis. She also did some GIS experiments on doing overlays in Ludlow in a much more focused in neighborhood. And so a few things is primarily in terms of natural systems having benefits to respiratory illness, it has benefits, but also there is also a problem potentially of allergies, because most of the pollen has allergens. So, but in terms of benefits, there is substantial benefits outweighing the cost. The other one is what she was found is having this type of a policy where you use non-traditional ways of managing diseases is another important area where we need to explore further. So that is just a quick overview of what Tyra did. You can always email me with any questions for Tyra. I just want to quickly see if Alijalis Dias is here. Alijalis?
Tim, this is Dave. What GIS software did she use for that?
Oliver.
Which one?
She just used a basic one, Oliver.
Okay,
GIS Oliver, yeah.
Okay,
Just doing some overlays with different, I think she was focusing on a couple of neighborhoods where healthcare facilities are in Ludlow.
Okay.
And she was looking at different open space around it. And so that's the second analysis she was working on. The other one is the regional one, at different county level data on COPD and asthma and percentage of open space in each county. So she's trying to do some relationships on that.
Okay, and what software did she use for her data analysis to produce the statistical?
Just Excel.
Excel? Okay, yeah. I was just curious. It looked good.
Yeah, Excel. Primarily, I think all the students in my class, they go through a learning of using regressions.
Yeah.
Using Excel.
So
okay. I think that everyone learned that tool. It's a really powerful analysis tool. Regression is really, you can get a lot of causal relationships quantified. And so she used Excel for doing that. Excel has those
basic good
facilities.
And very informative. Thanks, Tim.
So is Alijalis Dias here? Alijalis? So maybe I'll quickly cover that because I wanted to give a benefit of doubt for many of them who don't have power and so just what she worked on is really an emerging industry, is the cannabis industry in which has been legalized in many states. And what she was planning on doing is analyzing some of the factors for success and what is involved in terms of succeeding in this industry. So she has done a lot of background studies from literature, but also looking at what contributes to success in this industry. And so some of the cost structure, so we also developed a business plan because that is our interest in terms of developing this into a business. And so here are some of the costs involved, and also how this is the business plan based on that. But much of the results and discussion around it is factors contributing to the success and what's happening to the future of this cannabis industry and product differentiation which is emerging. And so that is some of the overall quick overview of our poster. I'm going to quickly start the share so that we can, I just want to, all right. So let's give a big hand, especially you can use the reaction button for all the speakers who have done an excellent job. And they worked I wanted to say that they worked really, really hard, because it's a very intense class, going through the concepts, but they made huge progress in everything. And finally getting a product is always very encouraging, and it's also very appreciative because it's a lot of work. And as you know, research is not easy within a short period of time, and learning some of the basics, but also pulling them in and then communicating. And I think everyone did a really good job. I know that there are
Tim, I'd like to second that if I could. I'd just like to second that, and also Dave's earlier comments about how the quality of the work and everybody's thinking. Posters look great. The topics were all interesting. A lot of them are really going to be influential. It's so great to see a cohort of people with this kind of talent, entering the profession, and it's really inspiring and interesting and great. I'd like to congratulate everybody. Great work.
Thank you everyone for doing a great job.